Great. All right. Fantastic. Hi, y'all. I'm very excited this evening or this morning for you, Orlando, to be here with Orlando Moreno. He is currently in Cabo, Mexico. He works for U.S. Foods, and I met him in Colombia via my darling brother, Zach Morris. And he has, I believe, a quite an interesting story. So thank you so much for talking to me this early. What is today? This early Wednesday morning, Orlando.
Good morning. Good morning.
Before we jump into the pandemic and everything that's going on, tell me a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay. Well, my name's Orlando, and see, originally I'm Cuban. I was born in Cuba, and back in 1980 we fled communist Cuba, and we went to the States. Lived in the States for God 30 some years. Yeah, I don't know. I'm married. My wife is Colombian,
Okay.
and I lived in Colombia for 5 years, and there's where I met your brother. Yeah. And lived there for 5 years and did a couple of things. Nothing major. One of them was to be an English teacher.
Oh, cool.
And then I moved out of Colombia and came here to Mexico, beautiful Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I love this place, and I'm so happy to be here. So I work for a company called U.S. Foods, and we're a food distributor.
Mm-hmm.
Since we live here in Mexico, like 98% of the stuff that we sell is imported, whether it's from the U.S. or Australia or Canada. If you want real maple syrup, it comes from Canada. If you want good lamb chops, they come from Australia, and so on. And so what I do is the chemical side of the business. Just what we do, we sell to the restaurants and the hotels. Here at Cabo San Lucas, or the Cabo area,
Mm-hmm.
90% of what happens here is tourism.
Right.
Huge tourism area, and the majority of the people that come for the tourists, I want to say it's like 60% come from California, Arizona, Oregon, or Washington. 60% of the tourists come from those four states, and so we got to bring in food that they are accustomed to. And that's one of the reasons that the vast majority of our stuff is imported.
It's from Florida.
What's that? I'm sorry.
You said the vast majority of the food is from Florida.
No, it's imported. It's imported.
Okay. Okay.
All right. And so, since we sell to the restaurants, since we sell to the hotels, they need to clean their place too. So that's where I come in. We also sell them the chemicals so that they can use it in their dish machine.
Okay.
Or washing pots and pans.
Okay.
What have you? Housekeeping, the laundry. So that's what I provide.
Okay. Okay. And how long have you been doing what you're doing in Mexico? Did you say 2 years? 3 years?
Well, when I first got here, I was a teacher.
Okay.
So, teaching is fine and all. You're definitely not gonna make a whole lot of money doing it.
Yeah, sure.
I play family, so I gotta. I got to do something else rather than.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I've been doing this since January.
Okay. Okay. Right. So you jumped in, and then the pandemic hit. And I will just let
And
anyone.
then we had a vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just let everyone know. So when and I didn't realize this till just now when you told me, Orlando, but you are in Mexico, but you're in the kind of the part of Mexico that comes down off of California. So it is that right? The Baja
Yep.
California. So it is not the typical. I usually think of mainland Mexico as, and that's my kind of ignorance, but you're in the tourist area. I don't know if it's safer or less safe. I don't know what it's like there, but it's definitely not. Yeah. Okay. Very touristy. Yeah.
Very safe. I mean, rarely do you hear of somebody getting mugged, raped. I mean, the whole time that I've been here, I have not heard of one rape.
Okay.
Uh, Obviously, murder or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely does it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but oh God, I was very, very safe.
Okay. Cool.
Everybody's happy out here.
Yeah.
A lot of smiling faces.
Okay. And okay, cool. And I just wanted to kind of, yeah, I guess give people that kind of image a little bit. But and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment in terms of it's a happy touristy place, but clearly the pandemic would have changed that. But tell me first about, so you started your job in January, working with chemicals and like making sure restaurants and places like that can get the right cleaning supplies. And then did you say you had a vacation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I came in January, and mid-March, everything got shut down.
Right.
And it's funny because our vendor, our
Mm.
chemical vendor, is my old boss in Florida. Um, so so he sells to distributors, and so we buy from. We got our first shipment in, I think it was the 18th of March, and 2 days later, everything was shut down. So I had a bunch of chemicals and dispensers there at the warehouse. Everything, and everybody was ordered to stay home.
Okay.
So yeah, what can you do? Just up until now, where I've been visiting customers and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where they have allowed us to come in and just today, um, later on in the day, I have to install. 'Cause all these chemicals, funny thing, all these chemicals have to go through dispensers. They're very concentrated, and so they have to go through these dispensers.
Mm.
Uh, so,
Right.
so that they don't just pour it down the sink or something.
Yeah. Right. Right. Um, so there's a lot of kind of logistics that you're kind of having to deal with that were unexpected that is now, I guess, the new norm, but you're still able to work?
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
here in Mexico, because we're talking about the pandemic, what I've seen is that the companies have really stepped up to the plate
Yeah.
in making the people, paying the people, even though they're not working, making money. These companies have really, really done a great job. When it comes to government, they've done absolutely nothing.
Well, yeah, I was curious about that as well. I was just reading that Mexico is like ranked 8th in the world. I think Colombia is actually just above Mexico in terms of cases. So it's been hit pretty hard. Mexico has been hit pretty hard. Maybe not so much the specific area that you're in, but yeah, I'm curious about along with your things slowing down at your job, like, and it sounds like your company's been pretty good to you. But yeah, tell me about some other things. Tell me about the Mexican government and the Mexican people, like what you're observing.
Well, it's funny. Right now in Mexico, we have a very liberal government. Uh,
Which means for Australian viewers, that means progressive, so like democratic. Is that right?
um,
Or
well, I guess the left or right, they'd be more to the left.
yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
And the way, yeah, and the way they, I was already living here when the president got elected. Obviously, there's a lot of corruption in Mexico. I think all of Latin America, with the exception of maybe Chile, they're okay, but the rest of Latin America is very corrupt. Maybe not to the extent of like Africa, the continent of Africa.
Mm,
But yeah, a lot of corruption out here, and so
mm-hmm,
people tend to get tired of that corruption. And
mm-hmm,
so the previous government was uh, definitely not was a more conservative government,
mm-hmm.
still very corrupt. People get tired of that, and they choose the other side, even though the vast majority of the Mexican population, Mexican people, they're conservatives. I mean,
It's
no, um, I think the only city that abortion's allowed here is Mexico City.
it's very Catholic, right?
So very Catholic,
Yeah.
very conservative. If they don't have to spend, dollar they want, because for the most part they're conservative. Um, but yet they chose a more of a liberal government who promised everything to them, and now people are kind of awakening to we're in a pandemic, people don't have jobs, and what happens is, unlike in the U.S. Or other parts of the world, we tend to at least or try to save a little bit of what we make, a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Mexicans don't save. So when they're out of a job, um, they literally have maybe 2 weeks
Right.
where they can tap into what you know.
Do you do you reckon that's because they maybe the wages are also low, so it's probably harder to save?
True,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that if the wages were higher, obviously, more credit would be uh,
Yeah.
people with more credit, so they can tap into that, their credit cards or whatever.
What would be like to work in like a grocery store in Mexico, for example? What do you reckon the wage would be
The
per
wage would
hour?
be about, I'm gonna say per month, it's gonna be about 300
300 US, 3 or 400 US dollars per month?
per month. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yet, now granted, I gotta say, electricity here, they're cheap. I pay probably 5, 6, 7 bucks a month on electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Water's maybe $4 a month. Food is less expensive than in the U.S., but gas is expensive. I'm paying a little bit over $4 a gallon for fuel.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, that's gas.
Yeah.
But the rest, I mean, I guess if you didn't have a car, or if you had a really inexpensive fuel saving car, you could make it on the $400 a month.
Mm.
It's going to be tight, but there's no way that you're going to
Yeah.
save uh, any kind of money.
Because you would make at least working full time at a grocery store in the United States. I would imagine you would make at least double that, probably. I would think it
I
maybe
mean, maybe
triple.
$15 an hour. I mean,
Yeah,
granted, you taxes taken out and
yeah, it's hard. And you might be thinking California wages, like California wages versus Alabama wages. I know
right,
that I know that in the minimum wage in Australia, it might be. I'll have to check this, but it's around $15 an hour, and that's slightly less than that's Australian dollars an hour. So that would be like probably like I don't know 11 or
right.
12 US dollars an hour. But yeah, I guess the point is you've got it's hard to save money, and the government in Mexico is not doing a lot to assist anybody for so I'm guessing shops shut down and restaurants and stuff like that.
Right. No, yeah, everything is shut down, and you would figure that the government would, I don't know, I mean, other countries in the world, even in Colombia, my wife was telling me that, hey, her mom got food delivered to her house.
Mm-hmm.
People were getting something. I mean, maybe not a whole lot, but something. I mean, you see what?
Like free fruit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You
that's
see,
lovely.
you see that in the U.S., the federal government stepped in with the unemployment benefits. They gave out a $1,200, uh, you know, whatever, one time. But it's something, it's something. Here, absolutely nothing. And like in the U.S., the federal government has helped the small businesses to so that they could continue. Not in Mexico, and I was kind of surprised.
Right,
That the
right.
government, granted, I know no government here,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just, considering what's happening, they just, you know, um, they definitely didn't roll up their sleeves and get it done.
Right. Was there like it's interesting to look at how different leaders have done things. I've talked to a girl in Brazil talking about Bolsonaro if and um like what did you feel like was Mexico address like was the president of Mexico like addressing people regularly about it? Was there any type of like collective we're in this together encouraging of social distancing and masks, like anything like that?
No, he, at the beginning, he said he had an, like what are those called? Like an omelet?
Oh,
Um,
oh, what, sorry?
like an, is it a omelet? Like something you wear like around your neck or something like that for
Uh-huh.
good luck charm.
Ah,
And
yes.
he said, we believe in this, and everything's going to be okay. He would kind of like Trump. He would never wear a face mask. Yeah, come on now. We're in a pandemic. Wear a mask, Um, and so he didn't say a whole lot, really.
Right, right. And what's the attitude of like your friends and your neighbors? Do you think people feel scared, or do you think people are just angry, or
It's funny you say that. Here, well, here, I don't know about the mainland, but here in the Baja, people do wear masks.
mm-hmm.
Anywhere you go, any store that you go into, state, um, the whole state, you have to wear a mask. And there's got to be somebody by the door with antibacterial sanitizer and
Right.
take. That's great. Once again, the the public has taken is aware, and they've gone above and beyond doing what's right. The companies, they've gone above and beyond in doing what's right. It's just government. They have not done a whole lot. Other than to implement, I gotta say, obviously the state of Baja California Sur, the government here, the state government, did implement that the stores have to have those guidelines
Okay.
before they allow it. So I think that's great. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Did schools get canceled and closed and stuff like that as well?
Yep. As a matter of fact, just last week, school started, but from home.
Oh, right. So they haven't, so no one in Mexico, the schools have actually gone back yet.
Nope.
No.
No, and they don't think they will reopen this year. I mean,
Okay.
think about it. We're still in a pandemic here, and winter's just around the corner where cases are supposed to go up. Hopefully they don't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're thinking maybe March, April of next year they'll allow the schools to open, and you know we'll see what happens. So I've got the two kids, and
Yeah.
it's a pain. Here, oh my word. And well, you met my daughter. She's
Yeah. She was really little then.
like 2 years old when you met her.
Yeah.
7.
Right.
Yeah, she's 7 right now,
Right.
and she wants to play. She gets bored. So I
Mhm.
get home from work. Like last night, I got home, and as soon as I walk in the door, let's play, let's play, let's play. I'm like, hey, I got a little bit of work to do. Let me get this done and get these couple of emails out. And so I spent quite a bit of time with her playing, which
Aw.
is good. I
Yeah.
mean, got to make time.
Yeah. But I have, it's been an interesting thing because I think for anyone with young children, anyone who live all by themselves or anyone with young children, I feel like either way, I feel like it's got to be a little bit challenging, because either you've got to be switched on all the time or you go crazy from being lonely, I would imagine. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge. We're dealing with it.
yeah,
Um, it's life. It's not perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Um, has
gotta,
it been, has it affected you guys personally? Like, do you know anyone who's had the virus or anything like that?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my coworkers, he had it.
Okay.
Luckily, he's young. Both him and his wife had it. They
Uh-huh.
they they have an 8-year-old son. He showed no symptoms of it,
Right.
but my buddy, my coworker, he was for about 3-4 days with fever, headache. He lost cases. His wife was sick for a little, maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
Her father died.
Oh no.
Yeah, her father died. Her mother.
From the coronavirus.
Yeah. There's
Right.
quite a few people everywhere I go. Uh, I just went to Mona Lisa restaurant yesterday, and the chef was telling me, yeah, he goes, I've got 4 guys out with coronavirus. Uh, One guy died in May, I think. And so every, even at our warehouse, we've had a couple of people with coronavirus. And after it affects you, where what I've noticed is that after somebody gets it, they don't mess around with that. I mean,
Yeah.
they always, always wear that face.
Right. Do you,
So yeah.
that's quite sobering. You know, I've talked to a lot of people that it hasn't hit so closely. It sounds like it's interesting to me that a few people around you and your colleagues have had it. Is there a policy in place, kind of like, obviously, like, is because I have read about a few places in Latin America where it's just like people just have to keep working. But I would imagine because schools are canceled and some places have shut down. Although you were saying you're at a restaurant yesterday, so maybe not all restaurants and things are closed down. Yeah, could you just talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, they opened up. They opened up the restaurants July 1st.
Okay.
Now I got to say, they opened up the restaurants. They can only be up to 30% capacity,
Mm-hmm. Right.
including the hotel.
Okay.
No more than 30% occupancy.
Okay. Right.
So, yeah, we've taken the steps, the proper steps, for every step that we can possibly take to make it safe.
Mm-hmm.
Even at our warehouse, one of the products that we sell, a chemical,
Mm-hmm.
is ordinary product, the disinfectant sanitizer. And so I went ahead and bought them a spray up pump so that they can, every morning, we have one guy disinfecting the whole warehouse
Right.
with the truck. And
Right.
just to
Right.
make it safer, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
6 o'clock in the morning, they go in and they spray everything.
Right. Right. Right.
There are floor mats, there are, it's called sanitizing mats. Everything that we can possibly do, we've taken the proper steps. We're even selling these tunnels where people walk through and it sprays.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do but it's interesting. So you find, and this is interesting to me because I wonder with some people that I know that don't seem to take it as seriously. I wonder if it's because it hasn't come as close to us, you know, like maybe.
maybe if they were to get it and they would feel so horribly bad. I hear, you get a pounding headache and you get a lot, fever for several days. I mean, who wants to feel like that? Come on.
No. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
that feels that, oh, it's not gonna affect me. Um, that mentality, but you can't make somebody believe or do what's right all the time.
Yes, you can't. But that's the thing that frustrates me is it's almost like it seems that the way it works is that people don't take it seriously. People don't take it seriously until it becomes over hard. It becomes too hard to maintain, and then it's everywhere, kind of like so because it is quite contagious.
I've got friends in the States. Um, they, oh, I've got a medical reason why I cannot wear a mask. I've got a buddy, I used to ride motorcycles, and he went to surgery. Uh, and it's fine. I mean, it's luckily he mentioned on his Facebook account. I went to Sturgis and 2 weeks ago, and I'm fine. Well, God bless you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Happy that you didn't get it,
Mm.
but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. Suddenly, it's. I think it's because it is so contagious. It's different from a lot of other illnesses. It's that it can spread so easily. So it's like there is a kind of a bit of a moral obligation there in a way that it's different than like a lot of other, like a lot of people say, well, this many people die of diabetes or cancer or anything like that, and that's true. But the difference is that you can give it to someone. You can't force
It's
someone else.
a lot more contagious than, say, diabetes.
Yeah, yeah,
And let's face it, I mean, a lot of the diabetes, and if you smoke, then you're prone to have cancer. And you
hmm
know
hmm
that if you are obese because you have a sedentary life and you overeat, then you might have diabetes. And those are choices that you take in your own life. Getting coronavirus is not a choice.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, something that is contagious, and so you just don't want to get it. Uh,
yeah.
I was listening to the news, I think it was CNN last night, and for what I understand, coronavirus is the third cause of death in the U.S. right now, so far this year. We're like in the last 6 months. So,
Mm.
and that is with all the steps and measures that everybody has taken. Imagine if they didn't have those things.
Yeah,
It would definitely be the number one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I know, I know. I've been watching the numbers still. And I think I saw, or was it? Were you telling me, or did I just read this that I think for death, Mexico might be number three. For
Um,
death.
I think that's something
Okay,
that you're number 8 or something like that.
I'll I'll check it before I share this to make sure I have this right. But I was curious if you could talk to me a little bit about what healthcare is like in Mexico.
So healthcare, it's definitely um, not as good as it should be, I guess.
hmm
Um, they've done what they can. Not everybody gets tested. These tests should be available to the general public, and it hasn't. I mean, you have to be um, having all the symptoms for days before you get tested. If you don't, well, that buddy of mine,
hmm
he's going to get tested. He goes out to get tested, and they wanted to charge him $250 for the test. Well, he didn't have the $250, so he didn't get tested. He says, well, I guess if I have it, I'll just tough it out. And the thing is that there's nothing he can do with this virus. I mean, it's a virus. There's not an antidote that you can take and make it go away. So your body has to expel it, kill it. So they just told him, and they said, hey, just go home and stay home. Don't go out. Um, go in quarantine. But yeah, the medical here, they put one. They had one hospital that was just for the COVID. But about a month and a half ago, there were so many cases down here. I think I read yesterday we only have like 230 cases
hmm
um, in Cabo. Um, but about 6 weeks ago, we had about 3 times as many cases. Considering the population here, we only have in all of Cabo, we only have like 320,000 people living. 70,000 of them are Americans or Canadians.
hmm
Um, so it's not a huge population, and to have 600-700 cases, quite a bit.
And it sounds, is it so your friend that had to pay $250, is that typical, is that like if you thought you had it, would you have to pay that much where you are? Is that I mean, is that
Tested? Yeah, absolutely.
so everyone in Mexico has to pay $250 if they want to get tested? Is that
Not
or a lot of them?
well. Hold on. Let me rephrase
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
He has to pay it, and I would have to pay it because I'm not over 65 years old. But if you're older, then you don't have to pay it. If you have a pre-existing condition, you won't have to pay it.
Right. So that's
But
interesting.
he didn't have pre-existing conditions, and
Mhm.
he's only like 34, um, he would have had to pay it.
But that's such, I feel like such a disincentive for anyone who like, if you're, I mean, I guess they're trying to just really make it better for the most vulnerable, which I guess is in some ways compassionate, but also if you're trying to contain the spread and you don't have $250, it's like, oh, do I have a cold, or or do I need to stay home for 2 weeks? You know? Yeah.
It's, I feel that you know, government here in Mexico, they get as many of those tests as you possibly can and provide each state with enough tests uh, so that the general public can be safe or safer.
Right. Right.
But
Um, do you think
this
there's enough? Do you think there's enough to go around? Do you think that? Um,
probably there isn't,
yeah.
and maybe that's the reason.
Hmm.
Uh, I would imagine that the resources are not as you would have in a first world country. Even though I don't consider Cabo a third world country,
Hmm.
uh, you drive around and this is pretty much first world. Um, but other parts of Mexico, yeah,
Mm. Mm.
especially the southern part of Mexico going into Guatemala.
Yeah.
Uh, from say the middle of Mexico all the way down to Guatemala,
Yeah.
that's third world.
Yeah.
You'll have
Yeah.
people living in cardboard boxes and huts with no running water, no electricity, and so yeah, it can be a little rough out there.
And
There's definitely
um,
not $250 where people are going to have.
yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and in those, and people probably, if they have jobs, they feel they have to work. So the idea of quarantining for 2 weeks, if you do have it or something like that, is, if the government's not supporting you, is basically probably impossible to do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Um,
The only problem that I've seen here in Mexico is really not so much the people. The people, they tend to do what's right for the most part.
mm-hmm.
Um, but government, they just kind of they don't provide for their people. And when, when you see people migrating to other countries in vast numbers, well, there's a problem. If somebody from Mexico migrates to say the U.S. for a better life, it's because obviously it's probably because government has been so corrupt out here that they've taken the whatever opportunity that somebody.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have that in Australia. You don't have um, places like New Zealand, Canada. Canada's good, but here in Mexico, it's really all about government. It's
Yeah.
not really, people are good here.
Um, yeah, and I mean that's another interesting thing because like people are desperate and they want to get into other countries, and then that creates some ridiculous controversies, I think, in the United States, and then you have a whole political issue. But I don't want to. First of all, I know I don't know how much time you have, Orlando, so I don't want to take too much of it. I know it's you might have to. You're all right. You're right, because I had a few more questions, but let me know if you have to go. I don't want to take. I don't want to make you late if you have to go to work or anything like that.
No. I do have to be somewhere at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, get comfortable. Grab a coffee. I would imagine that there's probably a lot of citizens who are angry about this, and I was wondering, like, there have been protests. We've seen examples of protests all over the world in different capacity for different things. And I was wondering if there have been many protests in Mexico.
No, here in Mexico, no protests.
None.
People, there's for the majority of Mexicans, they don't go out to the streets and protest. They're humble people. They stay home. They take care of their families. They know that if they burn that store down in their neighborhood, well, now they're going to have to walk a little bit farther to go and get groceries. So, yeah, they're they don't do that. And if they do protest, they do it in a very, very orderly manner.
Right. I have been to Mexico years and years ago. I remember seeing. There's some sort of. I mean, I remember more like. And I was in Yucatan mostly, and San Cristobal. So I was near the kind of Guatemala area, but it was the tourism kind of area. But I remember, I think, a few very simple protests, like just with some signs. I think it was about it was maybe the teachers were striking or something like that. But that was literally like 10 years ago, the last time I was there. But it definitely seemed quite, I was there and I didn't feel unsafe at all. It was just more kind of curious. Yeah.
No, people, I mean, if they do protest, like I said, they're not going to beat up the other guy because he thinks differently.
Right. I feel like there's a little bit of are you trying to say something or make a point?
I mean,
no? Yeah.
When I see things, I still watch the news.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see what's happening in the States. Whether you're on one side or the other, it's definitely not. Maybe not the country we all once knew.
Yeah.
Change. Hopefully, changes will come about to where everybody calms down a little bit, and that too. People being cooped up in the house, doing absolutely nothing but watching the news and what's happening. That creates too animosity towards each other, I guess. But it's, hopefully.
That's interesting. So you don't think that, it's interesting that the United States borders Mexico, and there's a lot probably more extreme poverty. I mean, there's poverty in the United States as well. There's a lot of inequality in the United States and a great wealth divide, but you don't feel like there's the same sort of tensions in Mexico between people in the same way that, and you've lived in the United States for many years, so you know what America is like, but you don't think it's as, you don't think the political tensions are as high in Mexico, despite the fact that they have a corrupt government, perhaps, and that a lot of them live in cardboard boxes and stuff like that?
You know what happens here? It's the mentality of the person. They know that they have to go out and they have to work. They got to take care of their families. So they're busy doing that. They're not busy protesting. I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see a whole lot of protesting. Everybody tells you, I mean, you ask anybody, hey, how's the government in Mexico? Oh, they're corrupt.
Right.
But what they do, they take it to the polls. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they make the necessary changes next time around.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that's what maybe what should happen in the U.S. Maybe the U.S. should learn from Mexico in that sense, where you know they didn't like the previous government, so they somebody else who
Yeah.
might just be just as bad, but you know, here in Mexico, the president stays for 6 years instead of 4. And so, hey, well, you know what? 6 years down the road, we'll make a change if we have to. If it's good, if everything's done right, we'll keep the same party, but we'll definitely change it if we don't
Mm-hmm.
like. Yeah, it's just different. People here, they don't. You know, my American friends. For example, I've got a friend. Um, he's older, 74 years old. He's no longer working. He was working selling timeshare, making decent money. Now, granted, he's got his pension coming in from the States, um, but because he's not working, he was all depressed. My goodness. I mean, I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks, just very little, just on WhatsApp. He sends me a message, hey, I'm okay, Orlando. I'm still alive. He was in Vietnam and he was a cop in LA. And so he's seen a lot of destruction, a lot of death. And so he suffers from uh,
PTSD. And
he,
yeah, yeah.
and so sometimes I worry about him. Um, and so finally yesterday he said, hey, I'm getting all cleaned up. I'm going to jump in the shower. I'm going to shave. Man, it's going to be a mess in there because it's been 2 weeks
Right.
that he hasn't
Right.
left. You
Yeah.
don't see a whole lot of depression here in Mexico. I've got a friend who's a doctor here in Mexico, and I asked him, I said, hey, do you, in the medical field, do you guys provide a lot of, you know, sleeping pills and pills for this and pills for that? He says, no, Orlando. He says, we have a lot of sunshine. You got to go out. The sun takes the depression away, and it's true. Um, in the U.S., we do have a lot of, you know, you go to the doctor, you get a slight little surgery, and they'll send you home with uh, painkillers. Well, you can get hooked on that.
Yeah. There's a
Here in,
huge problem with painkillers, pain pills in America, I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
here in Mexico, hey, go ahead and take an aspirin. You know,
Right.
just
Interesting.
suck it up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of the. Now, if granted, if the surgery, if it was a big surgery, then yeah, they'll have you on some medication, painkillers, but nothing like we see in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Funny, the pharmacies out here in Mexico, you know, they'll sell you the besides selling you the Viagra and all that stuff, with no uh,
Prescription.
prescription from
Yeah.
your doctor. Um, they'll also sell you the sleeping pills and the painkillers and whatnot. The vast majority of the people buying that stuff is uh, the tourists
Right.
or the Americans that live here.
Yeah. Right.
Mexicans, the Mexicans, they do not buy that stuff.
Yeah.
They just deal with it. I get a little
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
Part of life.
Do you and that's so yeah, I have heard that brought up before, and I remember my brother talking about even like in Colombia, the idea of cocaine, and actually tourists will do cocaine in Colombia, but the actual Colombians will never. Yeah.
It's not for the general public.
Yeah.
I mean, um, I saw living in Colombia. I did see drugs. You know, there were drugs, but uh, when it comes to cocaine, when I first moved
Mm.
to Colombia, I thought, oh man, there's gonna be a stand and everything.
No.
Not at all.
And I think
Uh,
some Colombians almost get they are almost offended when you presume that, because I think they've got such
what
a
happened to your brother?
yeah.
Because Zach is always joking around and whatnot, and we were working at a school district, and he would come up and say, "Well, the reason I moved out here is because of the coke," and people were like, "Dude, uh, that's offensive." But,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
pulled that. I said, "Hey, turn it down a little bit, Zach. They don't like it."
Which is interesting, because since then I think he's got it, because he's made a video about how Colombia is not about the cocaine at all. So I think
You
he's
know,
yeah.
look, I mean,
Yeah.
I went to college. I've never done coke, but yeah, I've certainly smoked pot in college.
Mhm.
Didn't care for it.
Mhm.
But my wife, she's never smoked.
Yeah.
Um, Other people, I mean, the vast majority of the Colombians that I've met, they have never even, they don't know what, I mean,
Yeah.
heard about it, they know what it smells like, but they don't, they've never smoked pot, they've never done any drugs.
I remember being in kind of a touristy town in Guatemala. It was in Laguna de Apoyo. I don't know if you've been to Guatemala, but it was like it was a very interesting thing, because there's a lot of gringos, I guess, partying, and I think a lot of tourists just having a lot of fun and taking a lot of drugs, and then you see the people that actually live there, and it's a very kind of different dynamic in terms of what people's priorities are. It was kind of in some ways I'll never forget that, because you see kind of like very conservatively dressed like locals and stuff like that, and then you've got these um,
Partiers.
yeah, yeah, it's a funny thing that but I guess that is a very interesting topic, and I'd like to talk about it more, but I want to come back to the painkillers and the what this idea of health, and what different cultures prioritize. But in Mexico, if you are sick, is there health care for everyone? Like, can everyone get yeah, yeah? Oh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
yeah. You get sick, you go to the doctor, and I gotta say, my mom lived here with us for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 years. My mom just moved back to Texas,
All right.
and she was out here, and she fell. 88 years old. She fell and busted her forehead, and she was bleeding all over the place. So we rushed. Actually, my wife called. I was at work. My wife called the ambulance. They came out. They picked her up. They took her to the hospital. Not a penny. They didn't charge a penny. We
Really?
tipped them. We gave them like $15. So they had my mom in there because she's elderly for a good half day. Goodness. And they did a CAT scan. They did an X-ray. They did a heart. They did all. What's it called? SKU or I forgot. AKG.
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, they really took her. They stitched her up, and then I said, well, how much is it going to be? I mean, she's not a citizen. She's an American, so she would have to pay, because she's not a Mexican. Uh, they said, oh, it's 220.
Right.
Like, okay, not a problem. So I paid the $220.
Yeah.
If you would have gone through all that in the U.S., it would eas it would have easily been $12,000-$15,000.
I know. So
So
that's wild. So she had to pay 200, you had to pay $220 for her because she was not a Mexican citizen.
yeah,
But
if you're not a Mexican citizen, I mean, it's fine.
Mexican, if she was Mexican, then she would have been able to have that for free.
Go in and get it for free.
So this is just so interesting to me because you just it sounds like even though there's some problems with the coronavirus distribution and testing and charging money for that, it sounds like if you are unwell in Mexico, then you get looked after pretty well.
My experience, and
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
heard horror stories from the Mexicans.
Yeah.
Our experience has been positive
Mm-hmm.
when it going to the doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if the hospital is completely full, they've got these little clinics where you pay like 50 pesos for a checkup. You go in, you need a prescription. And I mean, 50 pesos is $2.50. You want to go and see a doctor. You know what? Last year, back in November, I had this really bad allergy to God knows why. And I went to one of those little clinics. I didn't want to go to a hospital. And so I paid my $2.50, and the doctor said, I showed her all I had bought, all these pills. And she said, none of that's going to help you with what you've got. He said, go next door to the pharmacy and buy this. I'm going to administer you a shot, but go ahead and buy the medicine and come back and I'll give you a shot. And sure enough, by next day I was so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So far, I haven't had that allergy. I don't
Right.
know what was going on, but it was.
That's wild. That's interesting. I don't know enough about Mexican healthcare, but I'm glad that you've had like two very positive, pretty simple, easy, affordable situations. So
Very easy.
um, that's great. I just want to ask you, and I've taken quite a bit of your time, so I don't want to take too much more, but I do want to, because you mentioned that you are originally from Cuba, and I'd love to interview someone in Cuba at the moment, but I was just wondering, and you've already been so good at just bringing up your experiences in different places, Orlando. You've got a lot of different stories. But do you know much about how Cuba is handling the pandemic? Do you have any friends or family back there? Like any knowledge about what's happening there?
The thing about Cuba, because we have such a government in Cuba, um, nothing that comes out of their mouth you can trust.
Right.
Um, it is such an oppressive government, kind of like China. They say one thing and it's completely different from the truth. And so in Cuba, there have been coronavirus cases. Um, I think that the good thing about Cuba is that they're doctors, not their medical system, because, but they do have a lot of doctors. That's what they focus on because that's what they sell to the rest of the world. I mean, all these doctors that go to Mexico or Colombia or Italy, you know, the government, the Cuban government makes money out of those doctors.
Right.
They're sending them for free.
Mm-hmm.
The Cuban government makes, I think, an approximately $900 a month per doctor. And out of the $900, that doctor gets paid maybe $300. So,
Right.
so the Cuban government's making $600. So they're
Mm-hmm.
basically, you know,
And I've seen them. I remember when the pandemic hit China, I was seeing I mean, when it started, I was seeing Cuban doctors being sent, I believe, over to China to
yeah.
help. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I do have to say, when it comes to the care, that human touch from the Cuban doctors, I think it's excellent. I've had Cuban doctors,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to say, they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to getting the medicine, that's a total different story. Because
Right.
there isn't any. You get sick in Cuba, and that doctor will tell you, okay, well, you got to get this leaf from this tree and this other leaf from this other tree, and make a tea out of it, and
Oh, right.
or if you have the means, this is what you need. But you know, so the human touch is excellent. They'll take very good care of you. And I know this because my cousin in who was living in Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
he got shipped to Venezuela. He fled Venezuela, got into Colombia, and stayed there.
Right.
And he got a job as a doctor in Colombia. And he was telling me, he goes, hey, um, this would be, some of what they do here in Colombia, as far as the medical doctors, that would be unheard of in Cuba. They're not as humane in Colombia as they would be in Cuba. The doctors,
Really?
they're
Right.
there for the money, and let's make as much money as we possibly can, and so be it. The Cuban doctors are a little bit different. They're
Right.
not there for the money.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to take care of their patients. That's their main, focus.
Well, they wouldn't be for the money because they don't make any. So there's no, so they have to. And do they get to pick who? I mean, can anyone? Yeah, yeah. I'm so fascinated with Cuba. I have been for a long time. And now that I have my Australian citizenship, I think I can actually visit legally.
Yeah,
But also, I know that like their doctor, like what they're so well known for their medical abilities, but also like it's interesting what you say, how like yeah they get no reward for that, and that's interesting. Yeah.
there's no rewards. I mean, it's communism. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
horrible. Really a horrible system. It hasn't worked in anywhere in the world that communism has been in. So why keep doing it?
Yeah.
You know, I know that capitalism might not be perfect,
Mm.
um, but it's definitely the best system in the world. I mean, you work, you get paid for it, um, and the harder you work, the more money you make. It's
and And could you for anyone especially in Australia that maybe is kind of completely removed from Cuba, like in just a few sentences, can you explain what how they're? I know this is a very asking you a big because I know it's very complex, but what is it? What was it like growing up in Cuba? I guess maybe.
I was 8 when we left,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll tell you a little story of how oppressive that government is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? As a child, 7 years old, I wrote on my notebook in class, I had heard it somewhere, and I wrote, at home we don't have any dogs, but if you're communist, we'll bite you. And
Mm-hmm.
saw that, she sent me to the principal's office. Dad went and picked me up at the principal's, after school, and he said, "Man, what did you do?" And I told him what I did. He says, "Don't do that anymore." He said, "We the cops, the state already came to the house, and they were questioning your mom and I of why we had uh, such a young kid with such with with that mentality of anti-communism." So, you know,
Wow.
that's how oppressive the government
You were a
is.
child.
And I was a kid. Yeah. So luckily,
Wow.
2 months, 3 months later, we uh, we took a flight from. We took the train from Santiago to Havana and took a flight from Havana to the U.S. That my parents had been waiting to get out of Cuba for 16 years.
Right.
They were waiting to leave Cuba, and that's because my mom, she was born as an American because her parents are Puerto Ricans.
Okay.
My dad was born as a Spaniard because his parents were Spaniards. And so we were able to go to two countries, but the Cuban
Mm-hmm.
government said, no, you're not going anywhere till we tell you. And finally, in 1980, they said, okay, you can go ahead and leave now. And parents didn't think about it twice. They left that
Right.
horrible.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But yeah, very oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
Very, you know.
It's good to hear this side of it because I know that as a kind of someone who has never experienced it and grown up with it, there's a definitely, I think, a tendency, specifically Cuba. I've seen like documentaries on like Cuban medical stuff, and I've seen stuff about like how cool it, like they reached peak oil or something a long time ago because the oil got cut off, and they renovated the beautiful old cars and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of, Zach made a video of how, I think if you're a tourist though, you're going to experience it in a very different way than if you're a citizen.
Kind of like in North Korea, you're only allowed to go to certain places as tourists.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're gonna paint the streets for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when a lot of people uh, they talk about socialism or communism as a positive thing, and all I tell them is, hey, I welcome you to go to my country, but be there for a year. But don't go as a tourist. Don't go as an American or as a Colombian or as a Mexican. Live like the Cubans live. You know, they will, when they finally leave Cuba, they're going to leave Cuba a few pounds lighter because they're going to skip a few meals along the way. They're going to be hungry, and when you go hungry and you see things don't work the right as they should, your mentality is going to change. If you've never lived in that type of socialist country, you really don't know what it is. Are you
Yeah.
that? Oh, the old cars. Oh, cool. That's really cool. But you know what? When you're, look, I've got AC here, and every
Mm-hmm.
room I have an AC unit. In Cuba, it's very humid, and there's
Mm-hmm.
no air conditioning everywhere you
Mm-hmm.
would like you would expect. If it gets a little hot out here, I just turn the AC on.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that luxury in Cuba.
Yeah.
Uh, Not everybody has a car, so you don't have the luxury of getting in your car and sitting in an air-conditioned
Mm-hmm.
vehicle 95 degrees outside and 99% humidity. But yeah,
It's only going to get hotter as well, you know. That's another thing too. That's especially, yeah, yeah. Um, it's
but
mm,
from what I understand of Cuba, they had very few cases of COVID. Um, Cubans, they they lived quite a while. I mean, look at my mom. My mom's 88 and
mm-hmm.
still, she stopped driving at 81.
Mm-hmm.
So, the longevity in Cuba is got a long
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Uh,
It's safe as well, I think. I mean, in terms, yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta say,
yeah.
one of the few good things that government has done is
Mm-hmm.
that you can walk as a woman. You can walk at 3 o'clock in the morning or at 10 o'clock at night. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get mugged. You're not going to get raped.
Mm-hmm.
Because if
Mm-hmm.
government ever finds out rapists, they'll make them disappear.
Right,
So
right.
you don't have, there are no rapists in
Yeah,
Cuba.
right.
Uh,
It's just that you so that's, you know, why can't we have a society where you can be free but also there are and you can be safe? You
yeah,
know, where is that in the world? Australia is pretty good for, I mean, Australia, it's not completely safe, but it is safer. It's one of the safest countries in the world. And
right.
but it's, yeah, no place is perfect.
I
Um,
think, the older I get, the more I see that uh, you cannot go from one extreme to the other. Uh, Extremes are not good.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, if I've got two kids, and I want them to be as well-rounded as they possibly can. I read this somewhere. I don't remember where um, the perfect kind of like the perfect life. If you want to be a well-rounded person, you want to have lived in New York for a while, but not too long because it's going to make it too hard. And then at the same time, you want to have lived in up in California.
this is the wear sunscreen. The Boz, is Boz Lerman's wear sunscreen. And he says, live in New York, but not before you come too hard, and live in California, but don't let it make you soft.
Right.
Yes,
Not
yes,
too long. Not too long
yeah,
because it's going to make you too soft.
yeah,
Um, the Bay Area, very Bay Area, and then New York City. You want to live in both, but not too long because it's not going
yeah,
to be. So
yeah.
you just and I think that Mexicans, for the most part, they're pretty well rounded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're in the U.S. You're either a Democrat or you're a Republican, and if you're not, if if you're a Democrat, then you're a communist. Republicans, and if you're a Democrat and you see the Republicans, well, then you're a Nazi. Well,
Yeah.
it can
No,
be
I
that.
know.
It can be that. But here in
Yeah.
Mexico, you know what? It's good. It's very well rounded.
You feel like people can agree to disagree, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
They respect. There's a lot of respect out here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of respect, and just I love it here. In the morning, you go, you see your neighbors. Hey, good morning, neighbor. You're walking, and people are eating, and you say provecho, so meaning in good health.
Good. Yeah.
So it's really cool. You know, it's
Yeah.
really,
I think.
I didn't get that in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Having lived in having lived in Cartagena for 3 years, many times I would say good morning to like some neighbors, and they'd keep walking. Like, okay, I'm not gonna say good morning to you anymore. Here,
I
here's a little different.
yeah, I love that about what's that?
You definitely don't get that in the U.S. You say good morning, and people are like, "What's wrong with you?"
Well, I don't know. Have you ever lived in? No, you were in Texas. Were you in
Oh,
Texas? Oh,
Texas is a little bit friendlier.
let's say the south of the United States. There'll be some parts of the south will be.
Tennessee, Oklahoma,
Oh yeah.
that's actually okay. But if you go to Florida, you go to New York, you go to California, LA area, um, it's, it's a little
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to take too much of your. I think I've taken enough of your time, Orlando. But you have been so fascinating to interview, and you have offered a really unique perspective in a way that I don't think any of the other interviews have. So I really appreciate that. I'm so excited to kind of share that. So I am going to hit stop recording, but thank you so much for taking time this morning to talk with me. And I'm glad you're in Mexico and you're happy there.
yeah, I'm very happy. Well, good
Yeah.
talking to you, Alex.
Yeah.
Say hello to your dad. I really just a cool guy, you know. I'll talk to your brother later on. And
Yeah. Yeah. My dad's running for mayor, so I've got
I
to
know,
be.
I saw that. You know, if I was I'd definitely vote for him.
Oh,
And I hope
yeah.
you know what. I think your dad. I, I'll say a prayer for him.
Yeah.
I think he'll be a good man.
Yeah. I hope he does. I hope he does. He's left it a little bit at the last minute, but